And welcome back to another installment of the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling. I'm your host, Sean Meyers, joined by a returning Justin Lowery. Justin, nice to see you. I know you probably don't recognize me with this full beard now as I've gone into Elias mode with Halloween upcoming, but good to have you back here.
Thanks. Good to be back.
Now, you weren't able to join last week when I got into some of the talk about the Super Showdown, what that really meant, and then the next big, international event, if you will, which is Crown Jewel. But things have changed drastically in the past week regarding Crown Jewel, and this was certainly unexpected, not only by the execs in WWE, but really by people, all across the world. Without getting too deep into the political aspect of it, there are major ramifications if WWE goes ahead and does the show in Saudi Arabia, because basically the gist of it seems like people involved with Saudi Arabia, in particular their prince, might have orchestrated or been some way involved with the murder of an American journalist who was over there, and ironically the prince seemingly was the one who was spearheading this long-term 10-year relationship with WWE. Your thoughts on just the reaction of this news, and really the reaction of the fans online who seem to be vehemently opposed to WWE running this show?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really a political person, so I mean, for me, it's I mean, last year even I thought it was in bad taste last year going there. They probably shouldn't go there. I mean, Saudi Arabia is not a good country. It's their politics, how they run things. If I was a wrestler, I wouldn't want to go there. And apparently now there's reports of, numerous wrestlers not wanting to go. WWE.
But are they speaking up to Vince McMahon and so on, or are they just grumbling?
They released statements saying we're in constant contact with our, employees, blah, 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 and we're monitoring the situation. So they didn't deny that people are saying they don't want to go. They're just saying that they talk to their employees.
Right.
It's basically a money situation. It's kind of like blood money in a way.
And the money is obscene from what we're to understand. Right. It is more than they're making from pretty much every other show combined.
Right, because they're not paying to go there. They're being paid, like Vince and the company's being paid by the Saudi Arabia prince and stuff to go there. And apparently,
and by the way, he has pretty much unlimited funds.
Right, and he's also kind of booking the show. He tells Vince what he wants, and Vince gives him
1990s superstars is what he wants.
And that's what he wants, so that's what he's going to get. He wanted Shawn Michaels. Well, Shawn Michaels, we'll give you $10 million to do a tag match. Okay. He might have worked, 8 minutes in a match or make $10 million. I mean, it's hard to say no to that money. And it's strictly a money thing. And it's also kind of hypocritical of Vince and company because on TV, they America, support the troops, women's revolution. Well, that goes against everything Saudi Arabia and the show kind of stands for. So it's very hypocritical, and it's strictly all about the money.
Let me follow up with this. Women were not allowed to compete there last year, and that was certainly was it even last? It was earlier this year, right? Yeah, it was like a month after WrestleMania. That's when they had it.
They're back again.
Right. So that was an issue at the time, and it almost seemed like to sort of appease not only the women on the roster, but the people who were pointing out that shortcoming, they create Evolution, this all-women show, which I don't think coincidentally is just less than a week before the show over in Saudi Arabia. So with that already being a strike against going over to Saudi Arabia, not having the women there, should this be, the straw that breaks the camel's back with potentially, seemingly, a brutal murder of an American journalist, and something that, other companies have pulled out of various ventures over there within the last couple of days?
Yeah, and I don't want to forget, if you remember, Sami Zayn did not go over because of his religious beliefs. They would have went after him. If he would have stepped foot in that country, they would have maybe tried to kill him.
And he's legitimately hurt this time, but they made up a fake injury last time.
But he legitimately couldn't go because of his beliefs. You see senators, Republican and Democratic, urging WWE not to go. I think they're going to go because it's all about the money. I mean, that's their choice. If you're a businessman, it's his decision. They are very PR conscious, and this is going to get them bad PR. I'm seeing articles from people that don't normally cover wrestling, bring up their event and saying, and they're all negative towards the WWE. If they go, they look foolish. This is bad. This is that. But it's wrestling. I mean, it can survive anything. Wrestling normally isn't in a positive light. Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to happen. I didn't plan on watching anyway. I'm not saying I wouldn't watch because they're going to Saudi Arabia. I don't plan on watching. I don't think it's going to affect anything. There was no fan reaction, last night on Raw when they brought it up. Now, they didn't mention Saudi Arabia.
Well, yeah, they I think have removed all mentions of that just in case they do reverse course. There's rumors that they could try to have this show same day, probably similar time somewhere else, maybe England, so on and so forth. But one, if they do that, they're probably not getting paid, or at least not getting paid substantially. Two, if you're looking at it from Saudi Arabia's perspective and the Prince, if WWE changes this, then that 10-year contract probably will be null and void.
I would think. I think if they pull out, then all future business is done, right? It's over. And if you're someone that's Shawn Michaels, you're probably coming out for a $10 million payday. If they pull out, he's not going to get that payday.
And then what?
And then what? Now he's obligated to wrestle because he's already said he is, but now he's not going to get paid the way he thought. I mean, if you're him, would you be upset?
Yes. So one final question before we move on regarding Crown Jewel, Justin. You said you probably weren't going to watch. Is that sort of because this is most likely going to be presented as another house show in a sense? Obviously a glorified house show with all these old stars returning, but it doesn't still have the same feel as an American pay-per-view, does it?
No, I'm not interested. One, there's just too much wrestling programming to go around, and I'm not going to find time to go watch this 4-hour event. And I have no want to see Shawn Michaels wrestle at his age, Triple H. I mean, I saw enough of Taker and Triple H, just the clips that I saw, how bad that was, and all the reviews I read, they got slammed. Like, nothing was positive in regards to their match. I don't need to see anything. The only match that could be somewhat intriguing would be AJ and Bryan, just because that's a dream match for a lot of people. But I expect some shenanigans there.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a world title change, that would be shocking based on how the first two shows unfolded. Yeah, one in Saudi Arabia and most recently in Australia.
Change. Right. Yeah, and so I just don't feel like the need to watch.
So that's been heavily promoted for weeks now on Monday Night Raw as well as SmackDown Live. I want to touch on Raw a little bit since it is Tuesday here and we're less than 24 hours after Raw wrapped up. We'll get into Evolution a little bit and maybe how that has been lacking, but they have not been lacking promoting certain matches in recent weeks, and one of those has been the Roman Reigns triple threat match against Brock Lesnar, who hasn't been there, and Braun Strowman. The way that they've sort of gone about this is just having the Shield against Strowman and his cronies week after week after week, and they really haven't come up with anything new, but you're constantly seeing the Shield, you're constantly seeing Roman, you're constantly seeing Braun Strowman. That, once again, that six-man tag main event at Raw last night, third time in, I think, less than 3 weeks, or about 3 weeks' time. Why, in your estimation, are they still doing this? Does it interest you at all at this point?
No, full disclosure, I turned it off and went to bed. And I was looking at my Twitter feed, and everyone that I follow and stuff were saying, "Oh, look, it's the same thing again." I feel like this has been going on now, as you said, for like 3 months, week after week after week. It's the same guys in the same matches with a little tweak here and there. It's boring. It's stale. It's so boring. It's so bad. WWE is so bad. Raw is so bad. I have a hard time watching. I really, truly do. The last couple months, I barely watch Raw. I watch in and out, here and there. I'll watch parts, and that's it, because it's just so boring. Why they're doing it, I don't know. I don't understand. There has to be something better. It's atrocious.
Well, I'm guessing you know what happened at the end of Raw, where Braun and McIntyre went at it, and then Ziggler's sort of in no man's land, where it sort of looked like Drew McIntyre kind of abandoned him. What do you see developing out of this? Because this is interesting. I think everyone is breathing a sigh of relief that this trio is broken up, because I don't think anyone was clamoring to see more of Braun, Drew, and Dolph together. It just seemed like a weird pairing to begin with. But is this going to be Drew McIntyre being a face? Is this going to be Braun Strowman eventually returning to be a face? It seems weird timing with Braun challenging for the Universal title in, about 3 weeks' time.
Yeah. Speaking of Braun, talk about him. Do you feel like, I don't feel like, I felt before he was treated special. Like when you looked at oh man, this guy's special. I don't think he's special anymore. To me,
McIntyre has been protected. Strowman a little bit less.
I'm just talking about the aura of Braun.
Right.
Like his hype. It's just like, oh, there's Braun again. Okay, because he's not going to win the title again.
He just constantly seems to be in tag teams or six-man tag matches. Yeah, I agree with you. And that whole triple threat match, I don't think anyone's expecting him to win, right? I mean, people are hoping Lesnar's not going to win, but I don't think people think Strowman's going to win the title at this point.
No. It's just bad. And I don't know if they're going to make him a face, because then you run the risk of him being more popular than Roman, and we've clearly seen the company does not want that. So it's the Roman factor, and I hate to pile on the guy because I don't think he deserves a lot of the hate he gets, because it's not him really. It's creative and Vince and stuff. But like Braun has been hurt, and I think long-term hurt because of the need of Roman needing to be the champ. I think other guys get hurt. They hold other guys down, and all to sacrifice Roman, who, let's face it, isn't really that over. I mean, ratings are pretty dismal, so he's clearly not bringing in viewers. You can't say, oh man, this Roman, look, he's the champ. Look at the guys he's bringing in. He's not, period. So if he's not, why not give somebody else a chance? It's not going to hurt anything.
So I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's a good segue. Roman's not drawing ratings, although it's certainly more than just him. We can agree with that. Brock Lesnar really wasn't drawing ratings as champion. Someone that I think was pretty much a guarantee to increase ratings was Ronda Rousey when she came to the company. That was a big deal. The fact that she is pretty much delivered as far as what most casual fans were expecting. She's not there once every 3 months. She's there regularly. She wrestles every now and then on TV. She's always on whether cutting a promo or not. Are you surprised that the ratings are so low, given that if you go back about a year's time, Ronda Rousey would be at the very top of the wish list of how can WWE improve? What star can they bring in? She would be amongst the biggest names, men or women. She's here. She's on every week, and the ratings aren't reflecting much improvement. They're actually regressing. Yeah,
and to be fair, I mean, we see the total viewership an hour by hour. We don't know what segments do by viewership. We don't get that information. In fairness, Roman, as I said, and who knows? Maybe Ronda does give you the high segment of the show, but we just don't know that.
But even the highest segment is still pretty low at the. What I mean?
True, very true. I think it's because it's bad. I don't think people just tune out. I mean, like me, like it is bad. Like I can follow Twitter and go, okay, Ronda's coming out. I can flip over. Elias is on. Let me flip over. I have no reason to watch the whole show, and the casual fans are gone. There can't be many casual fans watching anymore. If it's 2.5 million, a lot of that has to be the hardcore wrestling fan base. Most casual fans must be gone, and it is bad. The show, and I know you're a very big WWE fan, hardcore, WWE.
Right.
Fan.
Well, I will say this, like that main event, I did not want to see that match happen. That being said, I can still watch it and think this is a pretty good match. These guys are putting on a good performance, but it should be a lot better. So I can watch it, enjoy it, while also thinking this show could be infinitely better.
Right. It's just boring. It's lackadaisical. It's like, I feel like the people running the show should all be fired. And I'm sure there's guys, me or you, anybody, who can probably figure out better ideas and better matches, because it's repetitive, it's boring. I don't know if it's the PG stuff being too conservative, the shareholders, or this or that. I have no idea what the problem is, but I think wrestling, WWE, it hasn't been this bad since like the mid-90s.
Well, the crazy thing is the writing, I think most people would agree on SmackDown, solid, right?
So I think SmackDown's a lot better. I mean,
solid, or maybe even above average for some of the stuff they've done with Randy Orton and Jeff Hardy, with Joe and AJ, with Becky and Charlotte. Although that one they kind of lucked into, but it's weird because I think it's almost all the same writers. I mean, it might be literally the exact same people. If there's some differences, there's a lot of overlap at least. So it's crazy that one show can be so different in how it's presented. But I want to touch on Ronda a little bit because it seemed like people really loved her segment with the Bellas. This is, I mean, to me, I wasn't that impressed by Ronda because this stuff was all easy. Like, it's not, it's so easy to throw out these insults. Anyone at home could have said the exact same thing. Now, I give her credit. It got a great reaction. It got people interested in it. But, I think this is why you have the Bellas heel, because they're such easy targets that this was a slam dunk. And truthfully, I was a little disappointed if she was going to go, shoot to an extent with these insults. How does she not bring up how sloppy Brie Bella has been since her return? That would have been the one that really had me saying, oh, that's a little...
You still have to keep it a little kayfabe, right? If you say how sloppy you've been in the ring, you're basically just telling everybody what we do is scripted and quote-unquote, fake or whatever.
Well,
so they have to protect that level, I guess.
Okay.
But, I mean, whoever told her to say it, clearly it's what everybody says on the internet all day long about the Bellas. And there's probably, I think what she said is very truthful, at least in I don't know them, but what they come off on their shows and in the ring and how they come off. Everything she said was kind of right, and I laughed and I thought it was hilarious. And then I laughed at the Bella's facial reactions. It's so bad. I just, I hate the Bellas. I really, truly do. Brie's a waste. At least Nikki can do some stuff.
Yeah, I think Nikki's, a very good, solid in-ring performer.
Brie is clearly hanging Daniel Bryan connection, the yes kicks. I mean, she's clearly an extension of her husband. And Nikki
which we both agree actually makes him look worse in the process.
Right. And I really think Nikki used her relationship with John Cena to break the record for the Divas Championship.
Well, they also wanted to erase some history there.
Right, and they didn't want AJ to have it either. So two things helped her with that. But
are you in any way interested? And a little bit interested after seeing something like this in what's likely the main event for Evolution?
No, because I just think there's so many other opponents for Ronda that would be a better match. Like, Nikki Bella doesn't do anything for me.
How is Nikki going to be presented as a real threat other than just having her and Brie basically be in a 2-on-1 against Ronda? That's the only way you can book it, right?
They made Stephanie McMahon look somewhat like a threat, and if they'll find a way. That's what they do. I mean, Ronda's going to win, but they'll at least make it somewhat like, ooh, Ronda might lose.
I want to stay on Evolution a little bit because they made this such a big deal. What was it, like August when they announced it, somewhere around there? It was such a big deal, this historic moment where I think they had Raw kick off with the announcement, and they made such a big deal about it. Since then, this has been horribly promoted, horribly built. Now, I think that the Bliss and Mickey versus Trish and Lita, that's a cool match. I like that idea. I think it works. I don't want that main eventing, but I think that makes sense. You're interested in seeing what Trish and Lita are going to do. It probably is the best to have it all together as opposed to two singles matches like they were originally going to do. And the SmackDown match, Becky and Charlotte in a last woman standing, that should be great. Other than that, though, what's our reason for watching this show? It seems like the Battle Royal is the laziest possible scenario and a complete waste of, 60% of their women's roster.
Well, yeah, my thoughts. One, is this going to be a 4-hour show, a 3-hour show? I mean, now the pay-per-views are normally 4 hours. So I would assume this is going to be 4 hours. And if it's going to be 4 hours, how are they going to fill the time? Because we have, two championship, WWE, SmackDown Raw. We have the NXT title and the finals of the Mae Young Classic. And then the tag team match that you just mentioned. So
what's the NXT match? Shayna Baszler against?
Kairi Sane.
Okay, so that was the finals of the Mae Young a year ago.
Right. So that's for the title.
Oh, okay, yeah, my mistake. Sane's the champion anyway, but yeah.
Okay, and then you have the tag match. So that's 5 matches plus the Battle Royal. That's only 6 matches. That's not enough time to fill. And I know you said you like that becoming a tag match. Well, with the time slot, I don't understand why it needed to become a tag match.
I think there's a couple reasons. I mentioned this last week when you were away. Bliss, I think, is banged up.
Yes.
And I also think that there's real concern. Do you want Lita working potentially a 10 to 15 minute match on her own? Do you want Trish working a 10 to 15 minute match on her own?
Well, true. I mean, I think Lita and Mickey would have been okay because I think Mickey is still very active. She could have led the way. Bliss, I love Bliss as a character and stuff. She's improving, but I don't know how much she could carry a match.
Right.
So I do see that point. I don't know if you saw at the announcement of the Battle Royal, a lot of the women wrestlers tweeted out their disapproval. I don't know.
Naomi. I mean, and like, do you blame her?
A lot of the Peyton Royce, Billie Kay, a lot of these girls did tweet out their displeasure with it, and apparently the girls on SmackDown found out when they made the announcement. No one told them.
Yeah, that's how usually the company works. You find out through social media.
Very, displeased with that because, and as you said, it's lazy. It's like someone like, oh man, we're 2 weeks out. We didn't think of any feuds or anything for this pay-per-view.
Well, the thing, it's not just the Sonya Deville's and Peyton Royce's and Alicia Fox's that are in there. You have Asuka in there, who should be in a marquee match. You have Carmella, who they spent 6 months building up as a credible champion. I'm assuming they're going to do like a match with the Riot Squad against Sasha, Bayley, and Natalya. That'll probably be another like 6-woman. But again, you're just throwing people together. It seems like they made the most minimal effort possible. They had 3 matches in mind. One of them is basically a Legends match. One of them is a match with the Raw Women's Championship that people, for the most part, don't want. So you only have one match that I think is like a dream match type of thing for Evolution.
And, I would have been okay with a Battle Royal if it was like Legends. Hey, we're going to have a Legends Battle Royal.
It would be awesome if we didn't already have a Royal Rumble for the women this year, as well as the WrestleMania Battle Royal. It's just, 3 in the span of 10 months?
Which is too much, but if you would have done a Legends, it's this way, because I think Tori Wilson's already announced for the Battle Royal, and like people like her, who maybe haven't wrestled in a long time, it's an easy way to protect them. You get them on the card, you represent your past, blah, blah, blah.
Against like a Lana, right? Or, you know.
It's like, for stuff like that, too, like, no one wants to see Lana wrestle. And then the biggest match I would want to see is Charlotte versus Becky, but now you have the situation of Becky being hurt.
So I don't know about this. Give me the abbreviated version, because I'm assuming they're still going through with this match.
They're going through. She's been wrestling hurt. She has a fractured jaw, believe it or not, which sounds like that would be something I wouldn't want to wrestle with. And I guess she was getting looked at over the next couple of days, and they're fearing that the injury could be worse than they thought. And if it is, there's a very high likely chance she will drop the title at Evolution because of the injury. So,
but she will be able to, in your estimation, work a full match then?
Sounds like it, because she's been, already working through it. But if it's worse than they thought, it does sound like she would have to drop the title, which sucks because it's killing all the momentum Becky has, got over the last couple months with this. And an injury happens, it happens.
I remember Dolph Ziggler, his injury after he won the title was probably worst case scenario. And he never got to that point again. And Finn Balor's a second example.
It's because sometimes Vince gives you that shot, and if you get injured during it, they'll just, even Daniel Bryan, he won the belts, he got hurt, and that was it. I hope that it works out that she's going to be okay, and she can, continue. But I would think wrestling with a fractured jaw to begin with is iffy.
Right.
It seems like she's talking fine in her promos and everything, so I don't know how bad it is, but there are, the reports that she might have to drop the title.
I want to run down 2 quick things here, Justin. We're nearing our 30-minute time limit. We got about 5 minutes or so. First thing I want to touch on is tonight, it is SmackDown's 1000th episode, and I mentioned last week that I think the company just has too much going on in a short period of time. You have regular pay-per-views. You have the Evolution Women's pay-per-view. You have 2 of these international shows. You have the Mae Young Classic. You have Mixed Match Challenge. Throw in there SmackDown 1000. It just seems like too much, and everything gets lost in the shuffle. But this feels like a show that it should be longer than 2 hours if they have everyone that they're supposed to. And again, don't want to throw out all the names, but everyone knows Evolution's going to be there. We'll see how they play off of that. Rey Mysterio comes back and seemingly will be back full time on SmackDown. There's going to be plenty of other surprises. Your excitement level for this show, and how do you balance getting all these names in here with continuing to build important storylines with a pair of big shows upcoming over the next 3 weeks?
I have a feeling this show is going to be like a throwaway show. And I'm not saying it's going to be bad by that. It's with all the names I've seen appearing, and I'm glad you brought that up. I don't know how they're going to fit everything in 2 hours. It just seems that things are going to be rushed. Segments, you might see a guy appear on camera for maybe a minute because it's just impossible.
Or it might be like 6 guys gather around playing cards that are all legends.
You know, Evolution is going to get like a 20-minute segment. I mean, those guys are going to get which.
Orton might sort of like turn on him or something like that, right?
If memory serves me correct, they were a Raw. Like, they weren't even on SmackDown. So the fact that they're on SmackDown is very confusing to me. It's just a way of...
Yeah, I'm not sure that, like, Ric Flair was, like, on SmackDown for very long, if at all, ever.
No, when they were together as Evolution, they were, pretty sure, a Raw group. They were never on SmackDown.
Right, I mean, Orton and Batista made their mark on SmackDown, so it makes sense. Triple H has had moments there, but yeah, Flair...
It makes no sense to me, but whatever. And, I mean, okay, you're going to have Mysterio and Nakamura. You would figure they're going to get 15 to 20 minutes.
Which, thank goodness, they finally realized the World Cup should be more than just American wrestlers in it. Yeah, I mean, that is absolutely a joke. That's basically like making a mockery of the idea, isn't it?
Yes,
I mean,
yes. They don't even have a Canadian. Like, I mean, no, it's all American wrestlers. It is a joke.
And with a roster that's probably at least a third of international competitors, you could have maybe 2 Americans, 6 other countries, Canada, whatever. Throw Cesaro,
Japan, Switzerland, Cesaro, Ireland, Sheamus,
Finn.
So many more. It's again, they're clueless sometimes. They're just clueless.
That's something that we'll probably discuss hopefully next week, the fallout of SmackDown 1000. But one final thing, and this is going away from WWE, but I wanted to talk about it because it kind of is trying to blur the lines potentially. Austin Aries, former WWE guy. He was a cruiserweight. Mixed emotions as far as his run. I thought that he did some nice stuff. I also think that, him leaving probably wasn't the worst thing the company had happen to it. He's a guy that's sort of been polarizing, I would say, throughout his runs in various companies. He was the champion of, it's called Impact, right? No longer TNA.
Impact Wrestling.
Okay. He dropped the title to former John Morrison, now known as Johnny Impact, or, whatever. Which, by the way, I think that guy still absolutely should be back in WWE at some point. He's a great talent. So the story is, I guess there was like a very combative press conference leading up to it where they tried to make it look like real animosity between these two. Morrison hits his finisher, wins the match. Aries immediately gets up, walks out as if he never felt any pain, completely no-sold it, flicked off some fans, and I guess Don Callis as well. Not sure if this is real or not. You kind of have heard that it is legitimate. He's done with the company, but they could also just be trying to play everyone here. Impact benefits because people are talking about the product, but your thoughts on this type of thing, blurring the lines, and if it is reality, what this means for Austin Aries maybe going forward.
First off, I like when things blur the lines. In the era we live in now, or the social media, the dirt sheets, everybody knows everything. This is how you can swerve people or get people talking. I like when there's a bit of realism in wrestling, and I always have. Do I think it's a work? Probably. I believe everything in wrestling is a work. Every promo, the CM Punk pipe bomb, they're all extensions of real life shoots, but they're also works. Because I think every wrestler knows if they would do something severely off script, they'll never work again. Promoters won't use them if they can't trust them. I do think Aries is a legit a-hole. I never heard the whole story, but I would assume something like this is why he's not in WWE, right? Not to this degree where he completely went off script, but he rubbed people the wrong way. Word's always been he's a hard guy to deal with. He's not somebody he gets along with the boys backstage per se. He rubs people the wrong way, so he never really made it to the big time if you want to call it that. I could see him being off TV for a couple weeks, and then all of a sudden attack, reappear, and they keep the angle going. According to the reports, is that was his last contracted match with Impact. If it is, and that's what he did, I think that's pretty crappy on his part. You still have to do right by the company and the business, and doing that stuff, I don't like. That's very WCW 2000 Vince Russo-like stuff.
Yep.
And people rip that. And so, I mean, if you're going to rip that, then you got to rip this if this was legit. Even if it was booked this way, it's still a little kind of cheesy, but if there's a payoff for it, then I'm okay with it.
Sounds good, Justin. We're out of time, so I won't be able to get to it. I have an idea for a new segment. It'll be very quick each and every week. It's going to be called What Grinds My Gears, and I will point out something little that really upsets me in wrestling. You could do the same. But we'll save that for next week. We've got to get the audience to come back for some reason. Any final thoughts before we wrap up this episode?
I'm just looking forward here. We're probably about 35 minutes out of SmackDown 1000. We'll see how enjoyable it is. And
you're definitely Team Blue Brand now in 2018, right?
I am 100% SmackDown. I will watch SmackDown, but I will somewhat watch Raw until it improves.
All right, sounds good. That's going to do it for my broadcast colleague, Justin Lowery. This is Sean Meyers signing off. Want you to check us out. Follow us on Twitter, 5-Star Pod Wrestle. You can also follow us, like our YouTube channel, subscribe, check out all the old videos. That's going to do it for this edition, and we'll be back next week with more 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling right here. Tune in again. Thank you.